Hello and good afternoon. Happy Wednesday, and I would like to welcome everyone to today's webinar, Budgeting for Immigration in 2020. Today's presentation will be about 40 to 45 minutes, and that includes an audience question and answer session at the end of the presentation. So if you do have a question, please feel free to type it in, and we'll try to get to it at the very end. To ask a question, you should see a chat box on your screen via GoToWebinar, so type it in and we'll see it. But do please keep in mind, however, that we can only answer general questions. We cannot answer any case-specific or company-specific questions. Additionally, this webinar is being recorded, and we will send out a link to download the recording after today's live session. You will also receive a link to download the accompanying slide deck, as well as SHRM and HRCI continuing education credits. All of these materials will arrive in your email inboxes tomorrow afternoon, so please keep an eye out for that message. So, for those that are unfamiliar with Envoy, for nearly 20 years, Envoy has been on a mission to fix the frustrating, inefficient, and confusing immigration process. Envoy combines expert legal representation with innovative technology to deliver the only platform that makes it seamless for companies to hire, mobilize, and manage a global workforce. Envoy secures work authorization in over 100 countries, has grown 33% year over year, and works with over 1,000 customers. We are particularly proud of our NPS score, which is a testament to the employee experience that we provide. And joining me this afternoon is Amanda Bolhuis, a managing attorney at Global Immigration Associates. Amanda's practice focuses on employment-based non-immigrant and immigrant visa petitions. She has extensive experience handling a whole different types of visas, including H's, E's, O's, and TN's, employment-based green cards, and USCIS, RFEs, and appeals. Amanda also has experience advising companies on corporate restructuring, mergers and acquisitions, and I-9 compliance issues. And she works with clients in several industries, including automotive, technology, and insurance. Amanda, thank you so much for joining us this afternoon.
Thank you, Eric.
So before we get into the main presentation, I just wanted to provide a brief overview of today's agenda, just kind of starting off with some of the government costs of immigration, kind of then exploring where some of these fees that you may be paying, where are they going, and then kind of ending things off with some practice pointers on developing an immigration budget, including how technology can help you. And then, as I mentioned, a question and answer session. And finally, the content in this presentation, it is not intended as legal advice. So if you have additional questions, please consult with your immigration attorney or another qualified or Envoy-affiliated attorney or another qualified professional. Okay, so let's dive into things, starting with looking at the government cost of immigration. Really, these are the filing fees, the application fees. So we're going to break this down. This first image that's going to pop up, it is courtesy of Stuart Anderson. Well, first off, I guess, Amanda, we should start off by saying that there is a fee proposal to increase fees that the government released at the end of last year.
Yes. So I think it's important to note that the fees that we're going over today are the fees as of today,
yep.
Because there is that USCIS proposal for a fee increase.
Right.
So as you can see here with the table, the current fees for all of these visa types for the I-129 application, the H-1B, L, O, TN, et cetera, the actual application fee themselves are $460. So based on this USCIS proposal, they propose to raise fees by more than 50% for many business applications. So as you can see here, the cost of the H-1B would increase by 22%, and like the cost of the L would increase by 77%. So including fees for companies, additionally, including these fees for companies with more than 50% individuals in I-1B or L status if they have over 50 employees. USCIS proposes to reinterpret the current law and add an additional $4,000 to $4,500 fee on extension cases. So there definitely is kind of a lot up in the air at this point. Nothing yet, no final rule has been published at this time. So obviously from the Envoy end, we'll be sure to let everybody know as soon as these fee proposals are enacted. Because there was a comment period, which has now ended, but we haven't heard anything since regarding the final rule.
Yeah. So has there been any indication, or did the government say like why they're increasing fees?
So they
seeking to increase fees?
They have the ability, since USCIS is a fee-funded agency, they do have the ability to review these fees for increases every couple years. The last time that USCIS did increase their fees was in the fiscal year 2017. So it has been a couple years. And then last time they also increased by a weighted average of 21%.
Gotcha.
Here too, it's important to note that they are not proposing an increase for premium processing. They actually already did that. They increased the premium fee by $30. So it was very slight. But they are proposing that instead of premium processing the cases in 15 calendar days, that they're going to move that to 15 business days. So that would delay the processing.
Gotcha. Okay, so we'll get to that one in a second, but I also just want to bring up a couple more images on the slide here. So again, this is from this article from Stuart Anderson. He wrote that these new proposed fees are to hit businesses hard, and then again, just re-emphasizing, Amanda, what you said, like a couple of these fees are, the L increased by 77%, the O, T, and E was at 55 or to 53%. So I have a question for our attendees. Seeing these fee increases, we're curious what your initial thoughts are on these. Do you agree or disagree with Mr. Stuart Anderson when he writes that these new immigration fees are going to hit businesses hard? So feel free to type in your thoughts. Would love to hear your opinions on this. And yeah, so as we move along to the next slide here, these are just some additional fees. What are we looking at here? So you mentioned the premium processing, so that's $14.40. But what are these other three fees?
Sure, and this will be mainly for the H-1B. The L-1 also has a lot of similar fees, but the application fee itself is $460. The ACWIA fee is actually based on the American Competitiveness and Workforce Improvement Act, so that would be an additional $750 or $1,500, depending on the size of the company. So it's $750 if the company is smaller, 25 employees or less. It's $1,500 if the company is larger, 25 or more employees. And then that's supposed to go toward, training, scholarships, things like that. And then we also have, for initial applications, this anti-fraud fee of $500. And then down below, as we mentioned, that with this new proposed fee structure that USCIS has on the table, they propose processing a case within 15 business days rather than the calendar days. So that, that could ultimately delay the application by an extra week or two, depending if there's, if weekends are involved, federal holidays, things like that. The other thing to note too with this fee proposal is that unfortunately the raise in these costs are not likely to reduce processing times at the agency, whether it's premium processing or not, because USCIS states that the price increase won't change the policies that have caused longer delays. And so we're seeing these namely in in-person interviews for employment-based green cards that was enacted, RFE increases, especially for H-1Bs, heightened screening and vetting, things like that that are just causing these lengthy delays in processing time. So unfortunately, this fee increase will likely not change any of that.
So we did get a couple questions about the fee. So can we just reiterate? So I'm just going to go back to this slide here. So we have a column that is the current fees, and then the new fees. These are just proposed.
The new proposed.
Okay, and those have not gone into effect yet, correct?
Not yet.
Not yet.
No.
Gotcha. And then these fees here, these are all
those are the current fees for the H-1Bs, and some of these will be similar as well. For example, like the L1, you'll have the same filing fee, the same premium fee.
Mm-hmm.
You don't need the ACWIA fee, but for initial applications, you would need to use the anti-fraud fee.
Gotcha.
Similarly, anything that's in I-129, the filing fee at this point would be $460. The premium fee would be $1440. The ACWIA and the anti-fraud are just kind of dependent on the case type and is it initial, is it first extension, subsequent extension, things like that.
Yeah.
So,
and I think it goes without saying, but for additional questions, reach out to your immigration attorney for even a greater breakdown on fees and whatnot.
Absolutely. For a case specific,
yep,
an immigration attorney would be able to help iron everything out.
Yep. And then for those that are currently listening, when you do receive the slide deck, if you are interested in seeing the proposed fee rule, there's a link here. When you receive the slide deck, you can click it, and it'll take you to the U.S. Federal Register, where you can read a very, very long rule. So let's move on to some additional costs of immigration. And these are the government filing fees for green cards. I mean, Amanda, I think it's pretty straightforward, but can you kind of just run through some of these different fees and what they relate to?
Sure. Yeah. And so on here, obviously, it looks like everything is the same price. And how this is broken down is the I-140 is $700. So if you're looking at the EB1 or down there, just I-140, the Form I-485 fee is $1,140. And then there's an additional fee, an $85 biometrics fee for individuals who are applying for the green card, that Form I-485, if they're between the ages of 14 and 78. So that's how we get this $1,925 number. It is important to note here that the EB1, the four top, you don't have to go through the perm green card process for those. There is no additional fee if you're filing the Form I-131 and I-765 along with that I-485 green card application. There's no additional filing fee. There could be additional attorney fees or case fees, things like that. But as far as the government standpoint, those you can file no additional fee.
Gotcha.
With regard to the EB2 and EB3, the perm-based green cards, you don't accrue any additional government fees, but there will likely be additional attorney fees since you're going through essentially 3 more case steps, and you'll have a recruitment portion where the employer will have to pay for ads to run ads. That can be pretty hefty depending on where the ads are being run.
Right.
I mean, it could range anywhere between $500 and $2,000, sometimes more. It really depends on the specifics of the case again, but that's something else to keep in mind. And then something else to note as well is with regard to who pays for these fees. The employee would be able to pay for the I-140 and the I-485 and any costs associated with those. So the top 4, the EB1 process, the employee can bear all those costs. With the EB2 or the EB3, that perm-based, the employee can still cover the I-140, the I-485, et cetera, but they are not able to pay for any portion of the perm green card process. So the employer would need to cover the costs associated with the prevailing wage, the recruitment, and that ETA 9089, that perm labor certification. So that's something to keep in mind as well. And overall, with like these non-immigrant and immigrant visa types, it's important for the employer to kind of outline not only a policy for the budget, but it's really nice to have that intact so they can look for something that's easy to explain to the employee if they're expected to cover any costs, what they're covering and why. And the employer as well can consult with their immigration counsel on, if they do want to cover all the costs or if they do want the employee to bear some things, what's eligible by law that they can pass on to the employee.
Yep. I think for additional information on that, we do have a ton of great resources on the perm process. And then Amanda, a couple months ago, you did a webinar on the immigration policy, which we did touch upon about budgeting and like kind of outlining those like green card costs and whatnot. So if you're listening, you can take a listen or read some of those materials for additional breakdown on what we're discussing here. So that's going to lead us into this next section. where does the money go? As you mentioned, USCIS is a fee-based government department. So again, this is courtesy of Stuart Anderson, and he found in a study with his organization that since 1999, employers have paid approximately $5 billion in H-1B visa fees. So as an extension, employers have funded approximately 90,000 college scholarships in the U.S. in science and engineering. And he says that's a funded total of about $2 billion as of September 2018. And then those H-1B visa fees that Amanda described earlier, which is approximately $2.5 billion, they've helped pay for the training of U.S. workers in tech fields by way of Department of Labor grants. So wanted to bring this up because it's just an interesting breakdown of where some of the fees that employers, like where they're going, that these fees that employers are paying for. So a couple slides ago, you mentioned like attorney fees and whatnot. Obviously, those are an important consideration. Curious though, can you discuss some of the phrasing or terminology that employers may hear when working with their immigration counsel?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. So when working with immigration counsel, different firms can bill different ways, and honestly, they can bill, different ways within the same thing. So the typical fee structures that firms have would be a flat fee, which would include like one fee for all the hours working on a case, status calls, assessments, consultations, things of that nature. Just everything associated with the case would be covered under that one fee. We do see these fairly frequently, especially with cases, more of the less complex case types, such as H-1Bs, TNs, cases that are generally straightforward. You'll often see just a flat fee for those cases. The other billing, or maybe hourly billing, is also a way that firms bill, and that would be maybe some of these services not covered under the flat fee. So if it's a more complex case type, I know that some firms do hourly billing for potentially O1, EB1 cases that will take a lot of time, require a lot of documentation back and forth. I know some firms bill hourly for consultations, for phone calls, for emails, things like that. So different firms do take different approaches to billing, and not only just one set way within a firm. Some firms utilize both options.
Gotcha.
So that's something important to consider when budgeting as well. When you're looking at the company workforce, do you have primarily H-1Bs, TNs, perm green card cases, or do you have a lot of extraordinary ability individuals with the O1s, the EB1s, the case types that might be billed at an hourly rate rather than just this flat fee?
Gotcha. Great. So that's going to bring us to this next section, developing an immigration budget. So it is, we do see a common concern from human resources teams, particularly those that handle immigration. See, like, there's kind of almost like a lack of holistic organization. So, for instance, HR that may not be well-versed in immigration reporting, not sure where to find the numbers and whatnot. Or they simply don't have time to compile figures and charge to share with higher-ups, because, as you mentioned, it's important for companies to see what they're spending on immigration. And immigration is a business process. It can affect multiple departments across the company. So, Amanda, I wanted to kind of take a look at the reporting and why reporting is important. So it is a way for these HR managers, those who manage foreign nationals and their superiors to track and as you mentioned, track and understand what the company has done historically. Curious to hear your thoughts, and I think it's going to bleed into a couple of the additional other slides, but just how important is reporting and seeing what a company is spending on immigration? Because as we start off the slide, there's a lot of fees. There's the application fees, those other fees, and then as you mentioned, immigration I'm sorry, immigration attorney fees as well. So, again, can you just like reiterate just how important it is to track spend and budget and keeping that budget?
Yeah, absolutely. I think not only is it important, it's difficult to do that depending. And luckily, and obviously, I work within the Envoy platform where it's easy for me and it's easy for my clients to be able to gather this information, because it's difficult for companies that aren't able to access an entire overview of their immigration structure to not only develop a budget, but also on another end to keep track of their extensions and green cards and expiration dates and when cases need to be open. So it's, I think that in a more traditional immigration approach, that's great. It works.
Yeah.
But I think that immigration reporting on this information within a more traditional approach is a little bit more difficult, because you're unable to pull these reports and just easily say, I have clients ask me, hey, what did we spend last January 2019 on all of our immigration matters, and we can easily pull that up.
Right.
And so I think that's very important, not only just so they can have a holistic view of their company's immigration budget and be able to prepare for this year. Like, are they growing? Will they have to project that they'll file 10 more H-1B transfers in January? Yeah. But that way they have a solid view, not only what they did in the past, but then what they're expecting to do this year and budget appropriate for it. They also are able to use these kind of reporting tools to present to their leadership like an educated model and view of what they anticipate they're going to be doing in the next year. So that's something that it definitely is something to keep in mind, where maybe the company has got a smaller group of foreign national employees at this time, but they anticipate to grow. Then at the beginning, I always advise, make sure you've got an immigration policy, make sure you've got budget for this upcoming time. And even if they're not able to get reports, talk to the immigration attorney and say, hey, I think these 3 people are expiring this year. Will we need to open extensions? Should we be getting green cards? Give me an idea of what I'm looking at coming into 2020.
Right. Yep. Yeah. So really being familiar with and taking ownership of your company's immigration data can help you make those informed decisions about, like Amanda just mentioned, hiring needs, budget, and then future talent acquisition strategies, because immigration is an important role in the talent acquisition pipeline. So as we move on to the next slide, really again, just reiterating that technology can help everything that Amanda and I have just really discussed. So you're able to pinpoint, and by developing that budget, you're able to see the ROI of sponsoring foreign talent. How much time you're dedicating to immigration on a weekly, monthly, yearly matter. And then again, Amanda, as you just mentioned, just how much time and how much HR is projected to spend on immigration. So some of this information is not easy to pull with a traditional approach. When we say traditional approach, what are we referring to?
So, different law firms have different ways of keeping their information. I view a traditional approach more the pen and paper type. Paper files, you don't have an online resource portal that you're able to just go in and easily grab. There are a lot of online sites that help with form preparation and things like that, but that don't necessarily track every individual in your workforce who, again, tracking the expirations, tracking how much cases cost and what you spent. So the ability, that's it, the traditional approach of not having that, it's a little bit more difficult to gather that data. It's definitely possible, but it's not as simple as saying, hey, can you pull me a report?
Yeah.
Yes, I can get that for you right away. Because, in our setting, we do have the technology to be able, it's already stored.
Yeah.
So it's easy to pull.
Yeah, exactly. And just to kind of like provide a visual reference of what it looks like to using a platform to provide an overview of what you're spending on immigration and helping develop an immigration budget. Like platforms can provide a snapshot and provide a story of what you're spending on immigration. So whether it's by visa type, by different groups within an organization, different quarters, and then it's like you can even break it down by legal fees, filing fees. So I think it's just really reiterating that there are different ways to get that snapshot of what you're spending on immigration, and to get that, so you're able to tell that story to your higher ups and plan for the future, essentially.
Absolutely. And yeah, however way that the company is able to do it, whether it be in a report like this or whether it just be discussing with the attorney the anticipated costs. I think either of those are just very beneficial. I personally prefer the graph, but no, either way, it's just, I think it's important to kind of get that budget intact at the beginning of the year so the company knows what to plan for. Obviously, you can't plan for everything. It is an estimate, but at least then you kind of have a set ground of, okay, this is where we're at. These are the fees we're going to need. This is how we can proceed this year.
Yep. So, Amanda, that's going to bring us to the question and answer session. So we have been getting a couple questions throughout this main presentation, but again, I do want to open up the floor to any additional questions that our attendees may have. So again, please use the GoToWebinar question box / feature that you should see on your screen if you have a question for us, particularly Amanda. She's the attorney. So as we wait for a couple more questions to roll in, I just want to again remind everyone, if you're not already subscribed to our Envoy mailing list, please feel free to do so you can receive the latest webinar, event invites, and stay aware of the latest content updates. And then we do have a couple more webinars coming up. Tomorrow, we'll be discussing the H-4 visa. And then next week, we're going to be discussing our Global Talent Imperative Report, which is available for everyone to download if you would like to read that ahead of next week. Finally, before we get to questions, these are the SHRM and HRCI continuing education credits. You will receive these via email tomorrow, but if you would like to copy them down now, please feel free to. So let's hop into questions now. So one of the first questions I have, Amanda, is we were discussing some of the fees at the very top. And as I'm sure you're well aware, there's the new electronic registration system. So that has a $10 fee per registration?
Yes. So for the fiscal year 2021 CAP, this upcoming CAP season, USCIS is implementing the electronic registration system, which will be a $10 registration fee. And then at that point, if the case is selected and approved, selected for processing, not approved, that's when the employer will need to submit the full application with the fees.
Gotcha. And so previously in the past, the premium processing, employers could have chosen to pay premium processing for H-1Bs, correct? Has there been any?
Sure. So at this time, nothing has changed with regard to premium processing for H-1B CAP cases. Historically, the past couple of years, what we've seen is everything's okay. It looks like we can use premium, and then USCIS will issue a notice a month, maybe 2 months before CAP season and say, hey, we're not allowing for premium processing this year. So I personally am going into CAP season kind of anticipating that they will pull premium again like they've done in the past. And then because they have indicated as well with this e-registration that once the cases are selected and you're notified, the cases will be processed on a first come, first served basis. So that leads me to believe that they probably have something in the works to withdraw premium at the last second or close to. But again, speculation. At this point, we haven't heard anything definitive. So we'll just make sure to let everyone know as soon as something official has been issued with regard to premium one way or another.
So there are a couple of questions about the fee increases. Those have not gone into effect yet, correct?
They have not. No, the final rule has not been issued yet. So it's still in the works. And again, it's likely that once everything's finalized, they'll give a little bit of time before those fees are actually implemented. it's really ultimately up to them, but I would be kind of shocked if they said, oh, all of this is effective tomorrow. Not to put it past USCIS, but I would expect a little bit of leeway, but nothing has changed officially at this time.
Gotcha. Great. So, sorry, sorry for any awkward. We're just vetting awkward silences. We're just vetting the questions. So this question popped up. What do most companies do with EB2 slash EB3 as far as having the employee pay for the costs that are allowed?
So with regard to the EB2, EB3, in those instances, again, the employee is allowed to cover the entire cost of the I-140 and the I-485 applications. It really does vary by company. I work with, and that kind of loops it back into the company's immigration policy. So I do have companies where I typically see companies cover the cost of the I-140 itself, and then usually the cost of the primary I-485. But if they have dependents, I definitely know that companies delegate the cost of the dependent green card cases to the employees. So it really just depends on, the company itself, their structure and their immigration policy and kind of what works. And this is where it is beneficial to have something kind of laid out, even if you're just starting an immigration policy, to have that laid out so that the employees are well aware of what costs they will cover if and when they get to that point. And then that way there shouldn't be any surprises. And I do also know, and I've worked with companies on setting up these policies too, sometimes it can be beneficial to include like a little asterisk. This could be different on a case-by-case basis, something like that, where, we may cover it if the need arises, or the employee may cover it, things like that. But it really is, up to the company and how they want to delegate their fees.
Right, yeah, definitely. Great, thank you. Great question. So let's just take a couple more looks. Again, sorry for any awkward silences. I think there was a question on we're going to call it ACWIA. It's the American, what exactly was that bill? It was.
Sure. So that.
And why is there a fee? Yeah. Why is there a fee associated with that?
It's ultimately a fee based on the American Competitiveness Act, and so those fees are supposed to go to, portions of those fees are supposed to go towards training and scholarships and such. And I'm seeing too, there was a question about an ACWIA or fraud fee hike. There's no indication of increases of those specific fees this year. It is the filing fees that there's the proposal to increase the USCIS-based filing fees. So at this point, there shouldn't be any increase to the ACWIA or the anti-fraud.
Great, thank you. Yeah, so there are a couple of additional questions that they are great questions, but unfortunately we cannot answer. So please consult with your immigration attorney for more information or for further clarification. Amanda, I think with that said, I think we're gonna wrap things up. Those are great questions, just can't get to those. So we are gonna end about a couple minutes early, but give everyone back 5 minutes in their day. So again, thank you so much for those questions and for attending. You will receive a link to download the recording and to read the slide deck tomorrow afternoon. So please keep an eye out for that. And hope to see you on tomorrow's session regarding the H4. So again, thank you so much for joining us and have a great rest of your day.